Hey guys, I'm Will Dabbs for Guns Magazine, and today we're going to talk about the Israeli Galil assault rifle. Now, the Galil is a unique hybrid design that draws successful characteristics from a variety of proven weapons and folds them together into one uber-reliable chassis. But to understand the significance of the Galil, where it comes from, and where it fits in Israeli history, we need to roll the Wayback Meter back to May 14, 1948. On the 14th of May, 1948, that was the day that the nation of Israel, rising from the ashes of the Holocaust, first declared their independence. Well, 24 hours later, on May 15, 1948, the 7 surrounding nations of the Arab League banded together, declared war, and invaded, with the express purpose of pushing the Israelis into the sea. So what became obvious from the very beginning, the nation of Israel was subject to a variety of arms embargoes. So if they were going to prevail, they were going to have to develop a highly refined domestic source of military firearms. And as a result, over the last 70 years or so, the Israelis have come to develop and produce some of the finest military weapons in the world. Now, the Galil was an integral part of that equation. Fast forward to 1967 and the 6 Days War. The Israelis fought the 6 Days War using the FNFAL. Now, the FAL is an exceptionally effective battle rifle, but the FAL was designed to fight in Western Europe. And when the IDF, the Israel Defense Force, used the FAL in the dusty reaches of the Middle East, it was found to be wanting. And so, as a result of lessons learned during the 6 Days War, the Israelis decided that they were going to build a new domestically produced assault rifle that they could build completely in Israel so they wouldn't have to rely on outside sources of support. And so after studying the performance of small arms in the 6 Days War, they found that the AK-47 was the most reliable assault rifle in the world, so that was their starting point. Now, Yisrael Galil, who was the gentleman who designed this weapon, started with forged receivers taken from Valmet RK-62 rifles, which were the most refined AK Kalashnikov rifles in the world. These receivers were procured in Europe and then smuggled into Israel, and they were used to form the basis for those first prototype Galil rifles. But Mr. Galil took that RK-62 forged receiver, and then he started adding on various features from other rifles. So the buttstock is drawn directly from the FNFAL. The weapon is chambered for 5.56, just like the M16A1, and then most of the action is drawn from the AK. So it's a long stroke, a gas piston-driven action that is the most reliable assault rifle action in the world. It feeds from a 35-round steel box magazine and has a number of neat bells and whistles that are not included on the original Kalashnikov, not the least of which is this turned-up bolt handle so that you can better access it with your weak hand, and then the safety selector is bilateral, so you can actually manipulate the safety selector with your firing hand without taking your hand off the pistol grip. As a result, the weapon is fairly heavy, weighs about 8.5 pounds. It's 2 pounds heavier than a stripped M16A1, but what you get for that is that it is arguably the most reliable 5.56 millimeter assault rifle ever created. So as you can see, it runs pretty much like an AK-47. The bolt is not locked to the rear on the last round fired, but there have been more than 100 million AKs produced, and the design is proven in combat around the world. The Israeli Galil assault rifle was undeniably effective. As I mentioned, it was arguably the most reliable 5.56 millimeter assault rifle that's ever been produced. However, because the Israelis spared no expense in the design and execution of the weapon, it was also quite expensive. Now, in the mid-1970s, the United States and Israel cemented the relationship that we enjoy today. And as part of that, the U.S. provided vast quantities of military equipment, not the least of which were tens of thousands of American surplus M16A1 rifles. These weapons were provided to the Israelis at essentially no cost. And so at that point, the Israelis found themselves with an excess of M16s, which was obviously a more lightweight rifle than the Galil. But the M16 and the Galil served side by side for decades afterwards. But nothing brings history home like being able to actually touch the equipment and the items that actually played such a big part in that history. And the Galil, for 2.5 decades, was a significant part of Israeli history during a very tumultuous time. It's always fun to paw over a classic rifle like this and to form that connection with history. And so it has been a privilege to share that with you today. As always, I appreciate your time. I'm Will Dabbs for Guns Magazine. Today we're talking about the Galil assault rifle, and you guys have a great day.